The island of Bermuda is located 600 miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. This tiny little island of 21 square miles conjures up many images for people. While it is known for its pretty pastel houses, its beautiful resorts, and gorgeous pink sand beaches with turquoise blue waters, this island nation is also full of history as Bermuda celebrates its 400th anniversary this year. The best place to learn about the history of Bermuda is to take a drive out to where it all began, the town of St. George. In December of 2000, the historic town of St. George was designated a World Heritage Site by the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. St. George is where Bermuda began. Known by mariners as the Isle of Devils, Bermuda became inhabited after an English ship, the Sea Venture, shipwrecked on the reefs in 1609. In 1612, the first true settlers arrived to begin life in what is today the oldest continuously occupied town of English origin in the New World. The town of St. George was named after Sir George Somers. He was the admiral of the Sea Venture fleet that shipwrecked on the reefs in 1609. Opposite the statue of Sir George Somers is a replica of the Deliverance. The Deliverance was built in 1610 to carry the survivors of the Sea Venture to Virginia. As we continue the tour, head up Water Street. This small cobblestone street houses many of St. George's merchants, businesses, and restaurants. Along the way, check out the many nooks and crannies that make up the town of St. George. On your right, you'll see what is now the post office. This building was erected in 1622 by Governor Nathaniel Butler and was originally used as a jail. For many years, the island's prisoners were incarcerated at this site, including John Stevenson, who was jailed in the early 1800s for preaching to slaves without a license. Just up the street from the post office, you will find the Tucker House Museum. Built in the 18th century, the house was occupied by Henry Tucker, president of the Governor's Council from 1775 to 1807. It is now used as a museum and has many Bermuda artifacts and family portraits by the influential American artist Joseph Blackburn. It also houses the Joseph Hayne Rainey exhibit. Rainey escaped to Bermuda from the Americas in 1862 to avoid fighting in the Civil War. He returned after the war in 1866 and became one of the first black Americans to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. In 2003, his portrait was hung in the Cabinet Office in Washington, D.C. As you make your way down Water Street, you'll come to King Square, which is where you'll find the Town Hall. The Town Hall is the meeting place for the Corporation of St. George. Continue past Town Hall and you'll find the Bridge House. Bridge House is one of the oldest and best documented buildings in St. George. The first house built on the site was a timber-framed house built in the 1650s. This construction was replaced in 1708 by a stone building, but a sketch accompanying a deed for the wooden building shows that the 18th century stone house was very similar in design to that of the original timber-framed house. Bridge House is now a private residence owned by the National Trust. At the top of King Street is the State House, one of the oldest standing stone structures in the Western Hemisphere, rebuilt by Governor Nathaniel Butler in 1620 on the original structure in what he conceived to be the Italian 8 style. It is one of the only buildings in Bermuda to have a flat roof. It housed Bermuda's first parliament and courthouse and was also used as a storehouse for gunpowder supplies. It is now rented to Bermuda's oldest Masonic lodge and pays a yearly rent of 1 peppercorn, which is the subject of an annual ceremony every year. At the end of Duke of York Street, you will find the Bermuda Heritage Museum. Founded in 1994, it is Bermuda's only black history museum and contains records of slaves, free blacks, and the many Black Friends societies. This is an important stop as the museum documents the important role blacks had in shaping Bermuda's history. It is also a stop on the African Diaspora Heritage Trail, which is part of the UN's Slave Route project. Across the street, you'll find Somers Garden. As you heard earlier, Sir George Somers was instrumental in the colonization of Bermuda. Here in the land that he had come to love, he died in 1610. In accordance with his wishes, his heart was buried here, and this memorial was erected in his honor. His body was taken to England for burial. As you make your way through Somers Garden, you'll see a stone structure known as the Bermuda Moon Gate. Legend has it that people who walk through Moon Gate, especially young lovers and honeymooners, are blessed with good luck. Steps away from the garden, you'll find the St. George's Historical Society Museum, Printery, and Garden. This is one of the island's oldest and most unique institutions. Built in the 1830s by a prosperous St. George's merchant, Major Walter Mitchell, for his nephew William, Mitchell House has retained all of its 19th century character and charm. As you continue past the Historical Society up Featherbed Alley, you'll come to one of the oldest houses in Bermuda. Known as the Old Rectory, it was built around 1699 by Captain George Drew. It is now owned by the Bermuda National Trust, and the building is a private residence. No visit would be complete without a stop to St. Peter's Church, one of Bermuda's most beloved landmarks. It is the oldest continuously used Anglican church in the Western Hemisphere. The original church was built on this site in 1612, although a more prominent stone structure was built in 1713 and the tower was added in 1814. If we take a peek inside, you will notice the fine open timber beams, and the church also contains an impressive collection of communion silver. At the front of the church, it also contains a beautiful Bermuda cedar altar. On the west side of the church, you'll find one of the key sites on the African Diaspora Heritage Trail. By 1698, almost a third of the 1,124 inhabitants of the parish of St. George were blacks, most having been brought over as slaves from Africa. As the slaves and their descendants became Christians, they were entitled to Christian burial in the church graveyard. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction into the history of Bermuda and the town of St. George. There are many more sites to explore, and not just here in St. George, but all over the island. I invite you to come and explore all of what Bermuda has to offer.